ideas what I'm talking about today. What do you think optimal arousal is? Going to start off on the end. Do you ladies have any idea what optimal arousal is? Should we have a go? Could think of that would complement what optimal arousal is? Would you explain like when you were ready to play and you're really like in the zone? That's basically how you put it, is you're in the zone, you're mentally prepared, you're physically prepared, and you're ready to go. So that's basically what optimal arousal is. Does anyone have any examples of when that's really worked for them and when it hasn't? Does anyone want to share any examples of when that's happened to them? When have you guys played your best tennis? What are some things that you can think of that have contributed to that? Yeah?
Happy, mentally in the right state.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're showing up to your match really in a good mood and really ready and prepared. Awesome, that's great. Yeah?
Confident.
Yeah, absolutely. Perfect. So you're feeling good, you're feeling prepared, you're feeling confident within yourself. Yeah? Anyone else? What about some things that they've done in the lead up to the match? Yeah?
Like well rested and
yeah, great. That's a really good one. Perfect. Yeah, so lots of different examples. What's maybe something on the other side when it hasn't gone to plan? Can anyone think of something where they're maybe not in the right zone before a match? Yeah?
late night.
Late night, so maybe you're a bit tired, you're feeling a bit fatigued, a bit heavy on your feet. Yeah. Anything else? Yeah?
You know, stress.
A bit stressed, so you're not feeling, your body's not feeling good, not feeling limber and ready. Yeah?
Maybe like a bad day.
Yeah, absolutely. So your mood, not feeling the best. Yeah. What about if we think about like the food side of things? Has anyone, maybe timed it wrong with their food, or has anyone ever had a stomach upset, or you're feeling nervous, or things like that? Yeah, absolutely. And I see examples of that even with the really elite players and elite athletes as well. So it is something that obviously we can practice and fine tune, but every now and again things don't really go the way we plan. So that's why it's really good to know what we can do to best prepare yourself so we can try and avoid that. So for you guys to help get ready, what types of things do you do? You mentioned one earlier about stretching, like that's a way that you kind of get ready. Yeah, do anything? Yeah. Yeah. Get your heart rate up a bit, get yourself prepared. Awesome. Does anyone listen to music? Does anyone do some meditation? Anything else you guys can think of? What about eating or drinking? Do you guys do anything? Yeah.
I'll put up loud music.
Yeah, does that pump you up?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a common one. Yeah, absolutely. That's a really, really common one. Anything else? Or you guys just go in like you are right now? Good? Yeah, absolutely. So you get that little energy spike beforehand. Yeah?
Drink a lot of water the night before.
Night before, so that's your prep? Yeah, absolutely. That's really, really good. And I guess that's the reason I'm talking about all the different elements that contribute to you being in the right zone. There's lots of different elements, and of course I'm going to be talking about the nutrition side of things to make sure we can do everything we can possible to make sure that you're prepared and in the zone when it comes match day and match time. So you can actually see this is the optimal arousal curve. And we want to have a little bit, we want to make sure that we're right in that zone. As you can see, if you actually don't get stimulated enough, you're just going to be too chilled, like you kind of are right now. Or like, when you first wake up and you're feeling a little bit sleepy and you're not quite ready. So we do need to have that level of excitement and that readiness. But then we also don't want it to go too far. What does that mean if we go too far with our kind of stimulation and things like that? Yeah?
Really angry.
Yeah, angry, you could be quite anxious, you could be quite nervous, and I know I spoke with a group last term about performance anxiety, and that's actually something that can happen if you're not in the zone or you're too stimulated. So obviously it's about getting in that right zone and in that right space, and we're going to go through all the nutrition side of things that can help complement that. So when I think about nutrition, there's 3 focus areas. It's going to be your preparation, so we can actually get you to that zone. The second is going to be maintaining it, because once you're there, it's very easy to go back down or go the other way. So we want to make sure that we're maintaining it and we're performing consistently high level. And then the third is recovery, all right? So they're your 3 elements, and I'm just going to go through how we can prepare, maintain, and recover. So when I'm thinking about a pre-match meal, We want this to be a rich source of carbohydrate. Why do we want it to be carbohydrate? Yeah? What's that? Yeah, carbohydrates. So carbohydrate's the main fuel we use when we exercise. Exactly right. So we want it to be there, ready to go. So that's why we want a good source of carbohydrate. What type of carbohydrate do we want to include? Do we want to be white varieties? Do we want wholemeal, whole grains? None? What are we thinking? Yeah? Wholemeal. And why is that? Yeah, refine, you're exactly right. Yeah. And what happens if we have those quick absorbing ones, those refined varieties? It doesn't sustain, you're exactly right. So if we were to go back to this curve, you're going to get there and then you might go that way or you might come back. So you're going to have those peaks that we don't really want. So what that good source of carbohydrate, that's high in fibre, that's got that slow release. We also want a hit of protein as well, and that's just to make sure to help your muscles and make sure that we don't cause any unnecessary muscle damage. But we also want to make sure we've got a hit of protein to help regulate your appetite. Because if you just have carbs, you'll find that you get quite hungry, and then just before your match, you don't want your timings to be out because you're so hungry, and then you have to eat, and then it's too late or too close to the game that you then get a stomach ache because you're still digesting. So the protein's going to help your muscles, but it's also going to help your appetite. And then the last is nutrients, and this is to make sure that your body's getting all those vitamins and minerals that it needs to perform and create energy and do all those small little processes within the cell. So some examples could be a wrap or a sandwich with chicken and salad. You could do some breakfast style meals like cereal or muesli with yogurt and berries or banana. You could do pasta with chicken in a tomato-based sauce. You could do soup with bread roll, particularly good for a cold day like today. Otherwise, stir fry with noodles and rice. So plenty of different options that you can go with. Is there anything else that someone likes to include for their pre-match meal? Things like this or anything different? No, the same? Okay. Otherwise, you could do like toast with peanut butter and some banana, those types of things. Did you have an example? No? Okay, awesome. So that's your pre-match meal. Then if we are to go to your pre-match snack, that's where it's going to be a little bit lighter. It's going to be carbohydrate based because like we said, that's the main fuel we use. And ideally low in fibre and fat. Why would we want it to be low in fibre and fat? Yeah? We don't want it to have too much, yeah. What does fat and fibre do to our digestion? Does it make it quicker or slower? Slower, yeah. So if we've got heaps of fibre and heaps of fat, it means that your digestion rate is going to be slower, which means you're most likely not going to digest it and convert it into fuel in time. The biggest example I see is someone having a too high fat meal. So let's say they've gone to a tournament or a competition, and at the courts they've relied on the canteen and things have sold out and they've had to get a pastry like a pie or a pasty, or they've had to go to McDonald's, and then that's way too high in fat. And what's happening is it's slowing down digestion, and they're actually feeling really unwell and unsick and feeling quite nauseous before they actually play. So that's another reason why you want to be prepared as well. So light carbohydrate, low in fat and fibre. So some examples could be yogurt with a fruit salad, banana and a handful of almonds, peanut butter on some rice cakes, toast with some Vegemite. So if you are someone that gets particularly nervous, and you know how we spoke about that zone and then almost shifting a little bit too far and maybe experience a little bit of performance anxiety, does anyone get butterflies in their stomach before they play a big match? Yeah, it's very, very common. So if that is the case, that's where your liquids are really good. So something like an Up and Go or a Sustagen Sport can be a really good way that you get all the nutrition that your body needs, but the digestion's a little bit easier and it sits a bit nicer in your stomach. And then that way you can play and feel really good. Is there anything else that people have as a snack before they play? Or just these ones here? Do you have an example? No? Just moved in. All good. Okay. So when we talk about preparation with nutrition, timing is so important. As we spoke about, it can go awfully wrong and you can not be in the right place if your timing is not ideal. So if we're thinking about that pre-match meal, so that's that one that's a little bit more hearty and a little bit more wholesome, we want to aim for 3 to 4 hours. And if it is that pre-match snack, which is a little bit lighter, that's 1 to 2 hours. So that's where that organisation is really, really key. And absolutely, in a tournament, sometimes it can be hard to plan your day depending on if games run later or they do run shorter. So that's where that organisation piece comes in and trying to plan as best you can given the information that you do have.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
What happens if the child has an 8:30 start in the morning?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. So in regards to getting them into that right zone, ideally when you wake up, you want at least 90 minutes to actually wake up and be ready. Anything less than that, science shows that you're actually not in the right zone. So with your timings, then it just depends what the day looks like, but you want to be getting in probably more like a snack style of nutrition rather than a hearty meal.
Yeah.
And that's where those liquids like a smoothie could be a really good option because the liquid's going to be really quick to digest, and then you can have it in the car and you're ready to go. But you want a very bare minimum 90 minutes rather than kind of getting up. Otherwise, if you just get out of bed, you won't be ready to go, ready to perform. It's a really good question. I get that a lot with marathon runners because they start the race sometimes at 6 a.m. and you know really, really early. So yeah, 8:30 is actually okay comparatively as well. So yeah, it's just about your timings, and if you're aware that you've got an 8:30 start, then you can prepare better rather than, typically I'd have, eggs with some, like an omelette and some toast, but it's like, okay, well, I'm not going to have that on the days where I've got to get up a little bit earlier. And yes, maybe you could have that afterwards as a bit of a recovery as well. So yeah, you can still find a place, but yeah, no, just working on your timings. So your preparation is going to be different for different activities. So if you guys were to prepare for yoga, would you prepare the same as for yoga that you would for a match? No, you wouldn't, would you? So the same as with your nutrition. So we need to make sure that to get to that right zone, we need to be preparing the right nutrition and the right fuels or the right pump up. Like, would you listen to your heavy music and your pump up music just before yoga? Maybe get you a little bit too stimulated, isn't that right? Yeah. And that's the same with the nutrition. And Emma's going to go through that in a little bit more detail about your prep and how that relates to different types of activities. But I just want to let you know that the same principles do apply with your nutrition. So I want you to think about the length of time. So if you know that it's going to be a long match, we need a little bit more fuel on board. The intensity, if it's high intensity, you need more fuel as opposed to low intensity like yoga. The conditions, whether it's hot, cold or windy, that's going to affect whether we need more fluid or more fuel, because the hotter it is, the more intense it's got to be. And then the type of session. So is it like a strength-based session? Is it a stretching and flexibility? Is it a running session? Or is it a session like today? You don't really need to be too stimulated or too pumped up beforehand. Yeah.
So it's got a lot of these kids are playing tournaments where they just play continually all day, like they get off from the game and going on to the next game. So what's a good just in between?
That's a bit later on because that's probably more your recovery, but great question. After I do that section, if there's anything further, we can catch up on that. So that's your prep, making sure that you're applying the right fuel to the right type of activity. So we've done the first bit, the first stage, which is one, preparation. The second is maintenance. So once you're there in the zone, we want you to stay there. And particularly if we think about a match, that's a lot of time, and we want to make sure that we're not, dropping off and you're getting a bit bored or you're getting a bit fatigued. And we also want to make sure that you're not getting too stimulated as well. So to maintain that, it's all about refueling. So the main thing we want to get in is the carbohydrate, because we know that that's what we lose when we exercise, and that's the main fuel our body uses when we exercise. So during the game, some great options could be some fruit like a banana, muesli bars, lollies, cordial. Otherwise, some sports foods could include like a sport drink like a Powerade or a Gatorade, energy gels or sports bars. Is there anything else that anyone uses during a match? No, just use those ones that I've got there. Okay, awesome. The other thing is hydration. I think when we think about nutrition, we always think about food, but hydration is super important, particularly in hot conditions or if it's a really intense match. We need to make sure that we're getting in enough hydration as well. And that's what's going to help sustain that high level of performance. All right, recovery. So this is the third section. And this is key to sustaining performance across the game, across the tournament, and across the tennis season as well. So when we think about recovery, there's three principles we want to think, and that's carbohydrate, because obviously that's the main fuel we've used, so we need to replace it. We need protein. Why do we need protein after we've played or after we've had a training session? What does it help do? Yeah, it helps your muscles recover, grow, and develop. So yeah, well done. Awesome. Last is hydration, so we want to make sure that we've replaced the fuel that we have lost as well. So, what could be some good examples of a recovery meal, guys? What are you guys having for dinner tonight? Nothing? So what's an example of a meal that has carbohydrate and protein in it?
Steak.
Steak, yeah, and we get the carbohydrate from as well.
Bread.
With bread, yeah, absolutely. We can have some mashed potato as well. Great, thanks for getting it going. How about you guys in the middle row? What about over this side? What's your favourite kind of dinner option that you can have as a recovery meal? Pasta? Yeah, that's a good one. And you could maybe have like a spaghetti bolognese, or you could do like a chicken pesto pasta. Yeah. Yeah, perfect. That's great. What about over here? Do you want to start us off? Yeah, you could do salmon. And what kind of carbohydrate? Maybe some rice or something like that with it. And maybe in this row? Think of anything else? What about if you're playing in the morning? What's a lunch style of meal you could have? Yeah. Sushi, yeah. Sandwich, perfect. You could have a wrap. Some other examples you could do would be like a milkshake and a piece of fruit. You could do a focaccia, beef lasagna, which is kind of like the pasta you were talking about. You could do a low-fat fruit smoothie, low-fat fruit yogurt, sushi, which you mentioned before, glass of milk. You could do an up and go if you've got a quick break in between. Small tin of tuna and some dried biscuits, chicken and pasta salad. So sometimes your recovery, like we were talking about before, can sometimes be your refueling. So for example, when you have a match back to back, and let's say you've got a really, really small break, that's when we need to think, what type of meal is this going to be? Because sometimes it's not just as simple as finishing and recovering. Sometimes it's finishing, recovering, refueling, and you've got a bit of time, or it's just one meal together. So that's where we come back to those principles of the timing, which is here. So for example, if you've got quite a big break and you've got around 3 hours, scared me. You've got around 3 to 4 hours, that's when we want that main meal. So what are the 3 things we want in a main meal? Carbohydrate, protein, and what's the last one? Nutrients, perfect. If we've only got a short break, 1 to 2 hours, what kind of things do we need? Carbohydrate, no protein for the last one. Low fiber, low fat, and we want it to be quite light. So those are the kind of options that we want to go through, and we want to make sure that we're thinking about the timing so that we can get in the relevant fuel for the digestion so that you're ready to go, okay? Did that help answer that question about the break in between?
Yeah, but what's going to be examples? We just do bananas and that's all we do.
Yeah,
I
perfect.
don't know what else.
So you're talking about a break that's less than an hour, or
Probably
like
15 minutes in between games.
Yeah.
Just coming off.
perfect. So that's where it's supposed to be light carbohydrate and low in fibre and low in fat. So fruit's great. If it's a competition like lollies or your sports drink are great because they're really quick and easy to access that fuel. Muesli bars, otherwise yogurt and fruit. Smoothies are awesome, but obviously, you know, it depends how you go. If you pack it earlier, or like an up and go is going to be great as well for the digestion. Yeah. No, sorry, that's a really good question. So just before you play, that 30 minutes just before, it's okay to have that sugar because it's going to give you that hit and get you in the zone. But obviously we don't have too much because it might push you over and you might crash later on. So actually, I call it like priming, like you also have that sugar hit that's just going to get you up and about. You almost feel really energized and ready to go, okay? We spoke a bit about hydration, so it's a key contributor to getting in that optimal zone. Particularly when we think about performance, hydration has strong links with things like your speed, your endurance and your accuracy, which we think about the key performance indicators of tennis, and they're major ones that we need to focus on. It also helps with decision making as well. So like we thought about with the prepping for the fuel, we need to think about the heat, humidity and the time on court as to how much hydration you need. So obviously the hotter, the more humid it is, the more fuel that you will need, or the more hydration, sorry, the more fluid you will need. So get ready before you start, head to the courts well hydrated, drink plenty of water, approximately 5 to 8 cups of fluid per day. How do we know if we're hydrated before the game? Do you know? What is it? Your weight, yeah, absolutely. So we want to be aiming for a light straw colour. Nearly clear is going to be ideal, and that's a great way to know that you're ready to go. Obviously, you don't want to have too much fluid just before you go on court because you'll feel it sloshing around in your stomach, or you'll need to dart off to the bathroom. So that's where your timings is really good to make sure that you're in the zone and ready to go. So during the match, top up as you go, small sips of water in between your change of ends. If it is quite hot and humid and it is quite an intense session, that's where you can go for your electrolytes, or you can go for your sports drinks as well, just to top you up a little bit more. So if we're thinking about recovery, we want to replace 150% of what we've lost. So if we've lost 1 litre of fluid in a match, we want to replace that with 1.5 litres. Because when you stop, you keep on sweating and your body keeps on cooling down, so you want to account for that. Does that make sense? Awesome. Let's keep on going. So there's a few extras that we do want to focus on, and that has to do with your caffeine. And we spoke a bit about sugar. In regards to sugar, sugar can be very good 30 minutes just before the match, or actually during the match, or in between. So when you've got those quick amounts of times, just because they're quick to digest, and it's going to give you that quick and easy source of carbohydrate. However, we don't want to have too much. What happens when you have too much sugar, guys? And maybe your parents can step in on this one. What happens? Do you go a bit hyperactive, maybe a little bit too much, and then what happens after? You crash, don't you? And we don't want you crashing during a match or in the middle of a tournament, okay? So if you're going to work with sugar, make sure it's the right amount, and then you're having it throughout the day and you're not having too much at one hit. The same goes with caffeine. Where do we get caffeine from? What types of food have caffeine? What's that? What types of foods have caffeine in them? Yeah? Coffee? Yeah? Chocolate? Yeah, no, okay. Coffee, chocolate, soft drink like Coca-Cola does? Yeah. Tea as well has a little bit as well. Yeah, great. So, does anyone have any caffeine in their day? Where would they get it from? Does anyone drink coffee here? And does anyone? I probably recommend at your age, guys, that you don't need to be getting caffeine. I wouldn't recommend it at all. Maybe when you are a little bit older, that's something that you can rely on. I know parents are probably like, yeah, okay, I rely on the caffeine a bit. Caffeine can actually be quite positive for your performance, but we're going to use that later on when you get a little bit older. But just to let you know that it can work positively, but if you don't do it right, you can actually go on the further end and get quite anxious. So that's why we need to think about making sure that you're not getting it from other sources like chocolate, or you're not getting it from Coca-Cola. It's fine to have a little bit, but we want to make sure that it's not too much, that it's pushing you over the edge and you're getting a little bit anxious or a little bit twitchy. Parents, what happens if you have too much caffeine or coffee? What's that? Yeah, good chat, yeah. Anyone? Has anyone drunk too much coffee before? Go to sleep? Yeah, you crash and burn. I know for me, I get a little bit jittery, or you can't actually do fine motor skills, and that's just where you've just peaked it and you've just taken it a little bit too far. So that's how sugar can work as well. So later on, maybe when you start to use caffeine, but just to let you know that it can help, but at your age, we're going to use that when you're a little bit older as well. Okay, so let's talk about the other stuff off core and outside of nutrition. Your preparation is going to be key, and I've brought it up a couple of times. So that's where your organisation is going to be really, really important. I like to call it controlling your controllables. There's so many things in performance that we can't control. So when you have the opportunity to control some of them, do what you can to get your routine down pat and fine-tuned, and keep on practicing that. So make sure you're never trialling anything new, including foods or sports drinks or any sports supplements on the day. Always use your training as an opportunity to practice. Because you're already feeling nervous, you're already feeling quite heightened when you are competing, so make sure that you're not adding any extra variables there. So plan out your meals and snacks, and always carry emergency things in your tennis bag just in case things go a little bit later and you need to top up. So that's where dried fruit and nuts can be really, really great. Or muesli bars, because you can just chuck them in your tennis bag and have them there as a bit of a emergency supply if things run a little bit longer. Or even like your lollies, or some electrolyte tablets and stuff like that. So get your kit together so you've got it there in case you need it. The last one is be consistent. So work out and use this time to fine tune what works for you. But once you've got your routine, stick with it and be really consistent with it so that your body can get used to getting in the zone quicker than what it is now. Emma will come and have a chat more so about some other techniques and other tips that you can use to help get you in the zone and achieve that optimal arousal. So make sure that you listen to what she says, that you can complement everything, so it all works together in a really nice, succinct way. The other thing I'm going to finish on is sleep, and you mentioned that at the start, like, you know, when if you're going to a match and you're feeling quite tired and you haven't had a good night's sleep, so sleep has a really, really important role in making sure that you are reaching those optimal zones. So ensure you're rested, prepared and ready for competition. We want to aim for a minimum of 7 to 9 hours of sleep each night. I think it was Novak Djokovic has 12 hours of sleep each night, so he gets in a lot and rests a lot. So make sure that whatever you're having, you maybe even getting a little bit more, particularly when you are quite young, you need a little bit more because you're growing and developing, okay? Not much longer, guys. The other thing we want to be consistent with, not much longer. The other thing we want to be consistent with is when you go to sleep and when you wake up, your body really likes habit and it really likes routine. So if you can be quite consistent with that, your body's going to get used to when it needs to go to bed and when it needs to wake up. So then it will happen a little bit more naturally and it won't be as painful when you have to get up in the early mornings. Practice good sleep hygiene, so make sure that your room is quite dark, there's no light coming in, because when light comes in, that stimulates the hormone to help wake you up, okay? So we're very receptive to light. So like when it gets dark at nighttime, and that's why you start yawning a little bit later on, because your body's saying, okay, the hormones are getting released to say time to go to bed. So then if you are getting any external light, and that can be from outside, or it can be from your phones, or it can be from screens, or it can be from, you know, quite bright lights, that's actually going to affect the hormones that are released that help you go to sleep as well. So that's your lighting, your blue light, which comes from your phone. So if you're, you know, scrolling through Instagram or if you're watching Netflix, that's actually going to stimulate you. And that's the same with the other stimulators and other stressors. So if you're, you know, doing something that's quite stressful, or you're talking about some homework, or you've got an upcoming test and you're talking and you're thinking about it and you're working yourself up, and then you expect yourself to go to sleep, your body just won't do it. It's not ready. It's the same as if you went to go and play. If you don't warm up, if you don't do your stretches, how can you expect your body to prepare and be ready? The same happens for sleep. So start that routine early and get into a good habit of doing that, so that when you do go to sleep, you can get a good night's sleep, you can get a quality night's sleep, and you can wake up feeling rested and ready to go. Does anyone nap? Yeah. Napping can actually be quite handy, particularly if you're playing a tournament over a series of days and you just need a little bit of extra sleep. Some guidelines is to go in 30 or 90-minute blocks, just so that you can get your different cycles of sleep, or what we call your REM sleep. We want to make sure that we're not going too long, that you're getting too deep. So 30 or 90-minute blocks. For some people, trying to sleep for 30 minutes actually stresses them out because they can't actually get to sleep. So in that case, simply doing some meditation or some breathing exercises, or just doing something that relaxes you is going to be beneficial, rather than getting stressed that you're not actually going to sleep as well. So other things that we can talk about in regards to food, if you're having caffeine, obviously we want to avoid that around bedtime. So that could be, you know, too much chocolate, or that could be, you know, having something like Coca-Cola before bed. Doesn't apply to you guys, but alcohol, things like fatty foods, because you're going to feel it in your stomach, and it's actually going to affect, you know, when you do go to bed, or that feeling of fullness. Large portions as well. Has anyone had a really big meal before they go to bed? You feel quite uncomfortable and it can affect your sleep, as well as the sugar, because we know that sugar is going to stimulate you as well. Other things can help you go to sleep, so herbal teas, nitrates such as beetroot juice, so we actually use that with the Port Adelaide players. Nitrates actually help with your endurance, but they can also help lower your body temperature. And there's another one that we use called sour cherry juice, or tart cherry juice, that actually helps dampen inflammation. And it also helps release melatonin and enhance the production. So there are some fun things that you can work with if you're really wanting to get the most out of your sleep. But the big rocks I would focus on is a consistent time that you go to bed and making sure you're getting enough. They're the two main things I'd focus on to make sure you're waking up rested and ready to go. Okay, it brings us to the end. So the main points I want to leave with you guys today are prepare and plan ahead. Fuel for the activity, so make sure you're getting in the right fuel and you've got it for the right time that you need it. Focus on your timings, making sure that it's not too early and not too late. Recover right to ensure continued high level performance, so you can back it up and continue to do it time and time again. Prioritise sleep and utilise tools and techniques that you're going to hear from Emma in a little bit. Thank you guys. I'll be around the place so if you do have any questions. Otherwise, does anyone have any questions now or anything like that? I'll float around if anyone wants to. And the same with parents, because I know some of you might not have heard me at the back, so if you have any questions about that, I'll float around.
Great, thanks Emily.
No, sounds good. I'll step to the back.
Alright guys, so just next one, we're just going to bring in the girls who are going to come in from the Breakthrough Foundation. There's someone that I'm trying to do some work with moving forward, just around the mental health piece. So just going to talk to you a little bit around the mental health, and as part of our, obviously a really important part of our well-being within this program, with NDS program, and really for all you guys at the moment. So really important piece of being aware of all those things. I'm sure you're hearing that at school and getting those messages as well, that this is important with you guys having that out here on the tennis court, making sure that when you do come to training that you are happy to be here and in a happy space as well. So welcome. You guys need to set up on here. Yeah.
Hi everyone, and thank you for coming tonight. I'm Jade and this is Maddie, and we're part of the community team at Breakthrough Foundation. So I'm just going to run you just a little bit quickly around. Like a rhyme. Should we leave it out there? Just going to run you through a little bit about Breakthrough, just so you've got a bit of an idea. And then Maddie's going to take you through some of these steps on this poster. So we are based here in the city, in Adelaide, and Breakthrough was started about 3 years ago now, just over 3 years ago, and we're a research foundation. So what that means is that we're a charity, we're a not-for-profit organisation, and we fundraise to raise funds and awareness for mental health research. So we work with a lot of the researchers at Flinders Uni, UniSA and Adelaide Uni, and hopefully soon we'll be working with some of the researchers in other states. So they have different projects that they come to us with surrounding mental health, and we fundraise to fund their research for them so that we can find out some of the answers around why mental health happens in the first place, or why we have bad mental health sometimes, basically. So our vision is pretty bold, and it's to create a life free from mental illness. So we all have mental health, and it just depends whether it's good or bad, basically. We want you to be able to live your dreams, to live without restriction, so that you don't have so many of those bad days, and we just want to find out why that happens in the first place. You might have heard of some of the helplines like Beyond Blue and Lifeline, or the Kids Helpline. We're a little bit different to that, so we really need those those support lines in place to help when we do have those bad days. But what we really want to do is work out right from the very start why you're having those bad days in the first place. So now there's some pretty confronting statistics that are currently in place at the moment. So unfortunately, 1 in 5 people will actually suffer from a mental illness or a mental health related condition. Means, you know, in a group of 30 people, which I think we've probably got about that here, there's probably probably 6 people here, and they're conditions that have actually been diagnosed. So, you know, there's a lot of people out there that might not be talking about it. They might not be talking to their parents. They might not be talking to their friends or their doctors about it. So that's a bit scary. And the other one that sort of follows that is that we actually, unfortunately, lose 9 Australians every day to suicide. It's a bit scary, and we really want to try and change that statistic, because unfortunately, part of that is that a lot of young people from 15 to 24, that's the most common reason that we're losing people in that age bracket, and that's pretty scary, because I know you guys are all sort of starting to be around that age, so that's really scary. We also lose a lot of money in the workplace. So, you know, as you guys get a bit older and start to work, those employers are losing a lot of money for mental health related conditions as well. So just to give you a bit of an idea on what we fund, our 4 key focus areas are youth mental health, Aboriginal mental health, depression and eating disorders. And I know, you know, that's a big part. 2 of those are, you know, play a big part here today. You've just had Emily up here talking all about nutrition and making sure you're eating well and eating right to fuel your body. And that's where, you know, your physical health and your mental health really come into play together. And the other one is that youth mental health piece. So one of the programs that we are running at the moment that we've just funded is a program in primary schools. So it's a 6-part module. And it talks about your feelings and how to deal with those feelings and how to deal with friends that might be going through anger or, you know, being upset in the playground and that sort of thing. And then we're gonna roll that out into sporting clubs as well. So that's kind of where you guys, I think, kind of come into the picture, and why we're working really closely with Tennis Australia and Tennis SA to hopefully launch that program through all sporting codes in SA. And one of the things that we do is our community round, and I'm not sure if some of you might be aware of it or not, but we want all the sporting clubs each year to get involved, like we would for other causes, like breast cancer or cancer awareness, that sort of thing. And we got all the sporting clubs involved to raise money and raise funds so that we can really drive that mental health conversation within your club. And we just play a quick little video. We had some sporting codes get involved. The sound's going to work. Maybe? That's how many people are you know what? No. Oh, okay. Maybe we're just, yeah. Don't go. Thanks.
To raise awareness.
Thanks. Right, well, we couldn't do that.
1 in 5.
1 in 5.
That's how many people are affected by mental illness.
It could be your brother or your best mate,
It could be your mum or your cousin.
or it could be your teammate or even you. That's why research into mental health is so important. That's why we're involved in the Breakthrough Community Round. To raise awareness around mental health, to start the conversation, and to remove the stigma.
Sporting clubs are a great way of connecting communities.
We need to ensure that it doesn't affect our sporting clubs, families and mates. That's why we're tackling mental health head on.
That's why supporting your local sporting club is so important, because it's raising the next generation of mentally fit players and communities.
That's a little video we have put together just to promote our community round. And along with that as well, we developed this poster that Maddie's going to go through in a second. Because basically we want this poster to be in every sporting club there is in South Australia, and hopefully one day in Australia as well, to basically give you guys easy access to some points and some tips to help with your own mental health, or if there's someone that you see is struggling with their own mental health as well. We find that sporting clubs, two good things to good mental health is a sense of purpose and a sense of belonging. And we know that sporting clubs like this and your program here deliver that in abundance. And that's why we want to make that really good connection between the sporting clubs and mental health as well. You guys are, doing fabulously with the physical side of things, and we want to make sure that the mental health is doing just as well. So I'll hand it over to Maggie.
That's probably where these 5 signs are something that's really important to look out for. So it's good to look out for in your teammates, out on the court, maybe even your opposition, friends, family, even friends at school. And I believe Sandra might have touched on this potentially on the court already, the 5 signs.
Well, I didn't get to that, no.
No, that's okay.
But I did touch on the communication piece, which is a big part of it, yeah.
Excellent. So it's going to be built into what you guys are doing. So this is just some tools and some tips to give you to help look out for these things, potentially in yourself or even in someone else. I'll start with number 1. So to start with, and this is the same as the 5 on the poster behind me, which you'll see around the club room, and they'll be circulated around the place. This is just a little bit more of a detailed version. But firstly, a big one to look for is, are you not feeling yourself? So are you feeling a little bit out of sorts? Are you suddenly not enjoying coming to training, something that you've always loved doing? Or maybe you're having trouble remembering the drills that you've done time and time again. Little things like that where you can't quite explain why things maybe are a little bit different, but for some reason you just don't quite feel like yourself. Generally, we find when those sort of things start to creep in, and this could be someone else or yourself, we tend to sort of see step 2 come up, which is being withdrawn. So are you starting to avoid training? Or perhaps someone you know that's always the first one here and the last to leave, suddenly they're rocking up late, leaving early, they're not being as chatty as they used to be. These are things that we can look out for within each other that can be something as a bit of an alarm bell that maybe something is happening behind the scenes. So it could be within yourself, or like I said, one of your teammates. So leading on from that, it can be a big one around agitation and mood. So are you getting really, really worked up on the court, or you're noticing someone getting quite angry about something? You're getting, I suppose if you start losing, maybe you're not handling that as well as you used to, and you can't really explain why. Or you just see a change in behaviour. That could be just something to look out for, and maybe that's at a point in time where you check in with someone. If you think maybe that's a bit out of character for them and they're not normally like that on the court, maybe there's something more to it, so it's worth checking in on your mate. Leading on from that, have you started neglecting yourself? So that's another one that's an easy one to look out for with your friends and family. It's important to recognise it in yourself too. So maybe you are starting to be late to class at school, or be late to training, or maybe you're not taking as much care and looking after yourself because maybe you can't be bothered, or maybe you just don't have the energy anymore. These are just little things to look for in yourself and others as well. So from there, and the 5th one is, do you have feelings of hopelessness? So are you starting to have trouble getting out of bed in the morning, or know someone who is, and maybe they don't see the point of getting up and going to school or going to training? This is something to look out for in yourself and others, because this is not okay, and it's important to address. So we have developed 4 actions for healthy emotional well-being. So if you start to feel any of those things or identify them with someone else, there's some key actions that you can take. So making sure you're having a chat with someone is a really, really good place to start, and the statistics show that particularly in your age group, referring to the younger ones in the room, that if you are going through a difficult time, or personal life or at school, the first responder that you will speak to is your best friend before a parent, teacher, or your coach. So it's really important that you guys understand these little things that you can do to help your mates in case they do come and talk to you. So I suppose a big important one is checking in on someone. If you do notice any of those 5 things that we just addressed, maybe just pull them aside at the end of the game, or when you're having a warm-up hit, ask them how they're doing, ask them if they're okay. If they help you off and say, I'm fine, don't worry about it, ask again, really hone in on that. And when you are asking, making sure that you've actually got time to talk to someone. So if someone is having a really bad time, and they actually open up to you, making sure that you give them the time to do that, making sure you're just listening to them. You know, you're not there to solve all their problems, but sometimes just having someone to talk to can really change someone's day. Sort of feeding into that as well, following up with them. So potentially, you check in a few days later, that might make a world of difference to someone who's had a really tough week. Can you imagine that was you having a really bad week, nothing's gone your way, but one of your mates checked in, asked if you were doing alright, and then a few days later did it again. It can really change your mood, and it can remind you, if those feelings of hopelessness are starting to creep in, that people actually do care about you, and you're surrounded by wonderful people and friends and family in school, and you've got a support network that you can lean on. So I suppose on here, to sum that up, sort of in 4 key steps, you've got the reach out, which I touched on, the connect with family and friends, making sure you're chatting with someone, and maybe if that's a conversation that you're scared to have, maybe you could chat to their mum and say that I'm a bit worried about my friends. It's really important that you can have that relationship with people. 3 is relaxing, recharging and taking care, which sort of feeds into number 4. And I suppose what Emily was talking to before us in the previous presentation, making sure you're eating well, making sure you're getting that sleep, all those really important factors. So you want to look after your physical health, your emotional and mental health, you want to make sure you're eating well, and all of these will feed into your tennis as well. So I believe there's another presentation coming which will equally be an important part in this process, but it's important to make sure that you're addressing all those steps. So as Jay touched on before, there's plenty of content online on websites, there's phone lines, there's kid-specific ones. There's plenty of resources out there, so no one should ever not know where to turn. I feel like everybody in here is very well versed with Google and knows how to find these things. You could probably show your parents how to do it. Okay, and probably to just wrap up today, it's okay not to be okay. That's a really big takeaway. Everybody has times in their life where they go through difficult things or have a bad day, and that is okay. You're allowed to have a day where you feel bad. But if that day starts to rolling into days and weeks, suddenly it's impacting your life, maybe your social life, your motivation, your energy levels, that's when it's time to address that, because there are systems in place and people out there that can turn that around for you. And it's really important to identify that for yourself, your family, your friends, and anyone in basically your life. So thank you guys for having us. Do you have anything from the end there? Does anyone have any questions? Probably not a question topic, but put it out there. Thanks for having us, guys.
Thanks, guys. We got one last presenter here, and then I'm going to get the Barbie going. So you guys get to eat after this last one. So again, just going to introduce Emma. Emma's our sports psych. She's been with us how many years now? 3 years. And obviously around optimal arousal, some small little tools potentially from the mental side of things that she will present on tonight, which even if it's one thing that you guys can potentially use, it might be useful. So let's try and stay focused for another 15-20 minutes, and then I'll feed you. I'll feed the animals. Yeah? Alright. Just gotta get the snags out of the fridge.
Alright guys, thank you so much for coming along. Thanks guys. Thank you. Thanks everyone. Thank you for coming along tonight. There is a handout coming around, I'll explain it in a second. Firstly, I want to apologise, I ran a bit late this evening, so I just need to take a moment to optimise my level of activation, my arousal. I'm a little bit stressed. So, what happens when we are doing anything in our lives is that we are going to be somewhere along this continuum of being comatose or asleep, all the way up to having a nervous breakdown, a bit like I had about 10 minutes ago, where I was pretty panicked. We are always somewhere along here in terms of our physical and psychological activation. So how guys, I can hear a lot of talking, and I am speaking. Thanks. So we're always going to fall somewhere along here, from being freaked out and completely stressed to being asleep. So right now, I imagine you're probably on the lower end, because we're all pretty tired at the end of the day, maybe hungry, our energy levels are a little bit low, but we could do something to move us up the continuum. But we could also do stuff to move us down. So when we're talking about our optimal level of arousal for sport, what there actually is this really cool relationship between our anxiety or our arousal level and our performance. So what happens is that when we're bored and don't have any arousal or any anxiety or any pressure, we don't really play very well. We're kind of a bit like just going through the motions, just doing what we have to do, not really motivated. But then as we get our anxiety or our arousal level up, we get there, and then we hit this really nice peak right at the top there, where we're really energized, but our body is relaxed and our mind is focused. We've got all that really helpful energy running around our bodies. But then what might happen is we tip over and we get stressed and really anxious, but our performance starts to drop again. So we kind of want to find ourselves in that really middle ground where we're able to think and focus, and our bodies are really energized, but we're not so stressed out that we're freaking out like I was in the car. Definitely was not in my optimal level of arousal. So we're going to be trying to hit that peak position. Now this peak position, is different for different tasks. So tasks that are really hard, we need to be more relaxed. Tasks that are of medium difficulty, we want to be a little bit more anxious or a little bit more aroused. And then tasks that are really, really easy, we want to be really aroused for. So when you're running a 100-meter race, you want to be really pumped up. You want to have all the energy going around. You want to be in that red one because you need all that energy. But if you're about to serve, you probably want to be a bit lower because you want to be a little bit more relaxed. So your optimal level will depend on what activity you're doing. But for tennis, you're going to probably find yourself somewhere between the green and the yellow one because you want to be fairly relaxed so that your body can be focused and calm, but you still need energy because you've still got to run down the points and all that kind of stuff. So you're going to be somewhere in there. Now, just to give you a little bit of an idea of what we're talking about and to try to get your head around what this means, this is where your worksheet comes into it. So, there is a bunch of, hang on, how many activities are on there? 7, thank you. There's 7 activities at a scale there. So for each activity, I want you to think about what the optimal level for that activity would be. Not what you actually would be. If you don't like reading, your actual level would probably be pretty low. You should be bored. But what would you actually need to be in order to perform well? One being asleep, 10 being freaking out. So for each activity, what would be the ideal? Alright guys, coming in. So the first one was reading a book. What would be the ideal for reading a book? Yeah. 5? Yeah, you think 5? There you go, have a look. Yeah. 3? You said 3 as well? I promise I'm going to try not to hit you in the head, but I can't promise that it will happen. Excellent, yeah. Around a 4. Awesome. You said 4 as well? I can't keep the same for everything else. Yeah. 2. Okay, cool. Alright, sorry, I'll come back to you for the next one if that's okay. So I would have gone for reading a book. I don't want to be at a 1 or a 2 because I wouldn't be focused. I'd be like, sleep. But I wouldn't want to be up at a 10 either because I'd be like, can't read. I'd probably want to be around that mid-range of 3 or 4. You want to be pretty relaxed. But you don't want to be so relaxed with yourself. The next one is threading a needle. Yeah. 7. You've gone a 7. Okay, that's pretty high. You've gone a 7. You've got a 6. Yeah. Yeah. 6. Can't give answers to repeat out. Yeah. 5. You got 5. Yeah. Alright guys, thank you. I know the lollies are exciting, but we'll still have to listen. Thank you. I went for threading a needle again, about the same as reading a book. Because again, you don't want to be so tense that you shake and get the... But you still need to be focused. Thanks guys. What's the next one? Running for the bus. 7? Yeah? Up the back? Yeah. Down here then? Nice. Okay. Yeah. 8. Yeah. 6. Yeah. 7. Alright, yep, and here. Oh, you say any number again. But you need lots of energy. You're about to run for the bus. Yeah, but you can still have energy. Okay. And then you buy, I would put myself much higher. Because I'm running for the bus, I'm needing a lot of energy. This is a really easy task, just running. But I need to be really fast, so I'm going to need to be a lot higher than if I was reading a book or threading a needle. Alright, next one is serving to win a match. Open. 5. Win a match. To open a match. Sorry, to open a match. Yeah. Said about 2, so you want to be asleep? I think so, yeah. Around 8. Oh, you want to be getting really tense and shanking up. No, I don't reckon you do. 4. Yeah. 5. You can wait that. Yeah, alright guys, I'll come back. I would have said we want to be at about a 5. We want to have energy, but we don't want to be too tense. Because what happens when we're tense and serving? Scared. We're scared, but what else? What happens to our muscles? They tense up. And what happens to you, sir? Yeah, shank it. You don't hit hard. It goes wrong because you're not that beautiful flowing action. You shank it. Yeah. Alright, what about winning, serving to win the tournament? Hands down, who put exactly the same as what they put for the last one? 1. It's the exact same thing. You would be, because you're to win the tournament, you would naturally maybe get a little bit more aroused or anxious. I'm coming, I've got to talk. But you actually need to be the exact same every time you serve. No matter what. Because that's how you execute your best. Does that make sense to everyone? Coming back now. Yeah, and next one. Walking across the balance beam at 1 meter. You guys have had one. Come on over here. Yep. 5. You've got a 5. Beautiful. Yep. 3. You've gone really relaxed. Cool. Yep. Up the back. You got a 6. Nice. Oh, sorry. Yep. 8. Cool. Alrighty. I'll come back to you guys. Sorry. You've got one in your mouth. I can see. What about the next one? Walking across the balance beam at 10 meters. Is that the same as what you had last time? So they're 1 meter. Why not? Yeah. What's different about the task? Why does that change the task? You're walking on balance. You would be more stressed, but the task is exactly the same. So it should be exactly the same as walking across the balance bar at 1 meter as it is at 10. I will come back with more questions so you get an opportunity later. I come back. So, those last 4, guys, I know I'm exciting, but so that task hopefully has demonstrated to you that whenever you're doing a task, there is a perfect level for you. And whether you're doing that task in one situation versus another, there's still that optimal level. It's exactly the same. The context might make it different because, oh my god, it's the national title, or oh my god, it's 10 meters in the air. But the task is exactly the same. So your arousal needs to be exactly the same. Does that make sense for everyone? Yeah.
If you want to, like, say you did a 4 for walking across the 1 meter beam.
Yeah.
Do you think you should be like a 5, like a tiny bit more?
Yeah. Because what's different about the task? Other than the danger factor, what's different about the task? Shouldn't you be aware no matter what if you're balancing on a beam? Yeah. I get what you're saying, but the task is exactly the same. You actually need to be exactly the same. So, how do you know as a player when your activation level or your arousal level is too low? Yeah?
Say you like you're too low, you might feel really kind of sleepy and like
Beautiful, yeah.
tired or bored.
You might feel tired and bored. Awesome, up the back.
You'll be sloppy and kind of slow.
Floppy and slow. What? I'm sorry. Yeah. You won't be able to perform well. You won't perform well, essentially. Yeah. Careless. Yeah. Yeah. You won't care about your time. Awesome. Next question. How will you know if you're too high? Come down here. Your breathing gets really fast. Awesome. Yeah.
You're running around a lot.
You're running around that fidgeting and getting really agitated. Yeah, good one. Yeah, over there. Your heart rate's really high. Yeah. You get stressed out. Yeah. That's okay. We'll come back for another one in a second. Yeah. Sorry, you're. Yeah, absolutely. Would that be the optimal level or is that too much? I don't know. For you. What do you reckon? It's not the optimal level, like that's too much? Yeah, cool. Alright. One more up the back there. Talking loud and like excited. Talking loud and getting super excited.
Yeah, give us that.
Alright.
Also, like, maybe getting really angry and upset.
Maybe getting angry and upset. Perfect one. Yeah, that's it now. So what happens to us in orbit when we're too high? Yeah? Everything's flying, something really fast, maybe you're making some unforced errors that are just silly thinking errors, yeah? And you might go down really fast because you're wearing yourself out, yeah, absolutely, good one. So, where is your level? I want you to think back to a match where you played really, really well. A match where you were like, yeah, I was really in the zone that match. And you might have to think of way back, or it might have been really recent, okay? And think about what was it like, what did your body feel like, and where on the scale would you put your optimal level? This is real. I don't need to know this. On the scale, where super relaxed. And you're like, yeah, I want to be really chilled out about this. Now, when we get nervous,
Guys, listen up, listen up, listen up.
when we get nervous, that's usually because we've tipped over. We've got too activated, too aroused. But remember, this is your body preparing you to take action. This is your body preparing, and it's really, really normal. Because what happens is there's a really important outcome for us. We want to win. Good. So you should. Everyone wants to win. But what happens when we're nervous is we go, oh no, what if I don't? And we worry about what might happen rather than keeping our attention and our focus on the present, so on that one point, or that one serve, or that one moment. And then we get really, really worked up. And then all that heart rate and all that other nervy stuff that we talked about, that over-aroused stuff, starts to happen. So what we need to do about that? Reaching your optimal level. There's 4 things I want to touch on. I'm not going to spend very long on any of them, so we're going to touch on 4 of them. Who listens to music before a match? Yeah, cool, awesome. Why? Just talk.
It gets me really excited, and I'm like, yeah!
Gets you pumped up, yeah.
Yeah, it gets you really energetic and in the zone.
Gets you in the zone, gets you energetic, yeah.
Sometimes if you're a bit overexcited or nervous, sometimes a bit of chill music can come down and get you in the zone.
100%. So music affects our emotions and our bodies. What these guys have just shared with us, it affects our heart rate based on tempo. So if we need to get pumped up, we put on really high tempo music and that helps us pump up. But if we need to calm down and chill out, we put on a low tempo music and we can really chill out. It can help stop worrying or negative thoughts because your mind's busy listening to the music rather than doing all the worrying. It can activate our autopilot, so we can just go out there and just do what we always do rather than trying to overthink it all. And it can help monitor our emotions. Like I said, it can help us pump up or calm down. So what kind of music do you guys like to listen to before a match? Eminem? Yeah, better lose yourself. I'm gonna lose yourself, yeah. There you go. Next one is our breathing. This is a good one for when we're too pumped up, when we actually need to bring ourselves down a little bit. So a great way, thanks guys, a great way to calm down and to get our mind present rather than doing all that worrying is to use our breathing. So I'm going to do a quick breathing activity with you all, but you all need to close your eyes because I don't need any giggling while we're doing this. So everyone closing our eyes. Closing our eyes. And as you breathe, I'm going to do some counting for you. Closing your eyes, focusing on yourself. So you're going to now breathe in. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Breathe out. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Breathe in. 2, 3, 4. Breathe. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Breathe out. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Breathe in. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Breathe out. 2, 3, 4. For those who weren't giggling, how are you feeling?
Good.
Relaxed? Relaxed. Yeah. It's a really good way when we're over-aroused to come back. Next thing, thanks guys. Next one is our self-talk. Next thing is our self-talk. So we all have this inner voice, this inner little thing that we our thoughts and all of this. And the skill of self-talk is used to help us improve our concentration, so we can focus more effectively, and we can use cues to focus on the relevant things, and it can really help us get really pumped up or calm down. So again, this is really important for our confidence. And we can all get caught sometimes doing negative self-talk. And when we do negative self-talk, we're usually down on ourselves, and we usually go, or we get so frustrated and worked up, we go either side of the optimal space.
So we can use our self-talks again to bring ourselves back. So let's have an example here. You've missed an important shot. You could either say, oh, what an idiot I am, I'll never win now. And that's going to make us feel angry and hopeless, and we're going to get really tense. And if we're feeling like that, what are we likely to do on the next point? Miss it. Yeah. But if I go, keep your eyes on the ball, this match isn't over, I might be better concentrated, I might feel a bit more optimistic, and I might be a bit calmer. How's the next point likely to go? Better. Much better. Yeah. Better. Next one here. We've had an injury. Let's go. Guys, come on. I've only got 5 minutes left. Shush, guys. Setback or injury, if we've had a setback, I'll never get back to the starting lineup. I'll never get back on the court. We feel hopeless, anger, frustration. How are we likely to go about our rehab? Bad. Yeah, but if we go, this type of injury takes time to heal. I need to continue to work hard. We feel a bit more optimistic, a bit more motivated. How are we likely to go about our rehab? Better. Absolutely. So, we have our positive self-talk, which is that I can get it right next time. I gave it my all. We can have our negative self-talk, which is when we start to criticize ourselves, and that's usually not very helpful. We also have our instructional self-talk, our cues, something like relax or watch the ball. Serving, you're likely to have a cue when you're serving. Who has a cue? Something they say to themselves. Yeah, would you want to share it?
I just say like, I just remind myself to give the ball plenty of time.
Beautiful, lots of height. Awesome, that's a cue. That's an instruction that can be really helpful for our focus. And then we have our motivational one. The one, I've got this, I'm pumped up, I can wipe the floor with this person, I'm really ready, I'm excited. These are these motivational things we can say to ourselves. Now have a quick example of Djokovic using this exact skill.
Guys, listen up. Come on, last couple minutes here. Give Emma a finish up.
Hang on. Really quiet.
When I lost the fourth, obviously, the momentum shifted on his side, and I just needed to refocus and find the right purpose, find that inner strength, that the last drop of energy and inspiration, and just trying to be in the present moment, be aware of the occasion, be aware where I am and playing the 5th set of the Wimbledon. You never know what's going to happen next year, so that's something that gave me strength. I went to the bathroom, to a restroom after dropping the 4th set, and I had a chat to myself. I was loud to myself saying, you believe in yourself. Just, it's not a cliche, it really works. Even when you don't feel it at times, to say some positive things to yourself, that's exactly when you should do it. And I'm not here to preach about right and wise things, but just work for me, and I'm full of joy.
So he just talks about being in the present, being in that moment. I'm here, this is amazing, look at where I've got to. So being in the present. Then he talked about going and having that chat with himself. Reminding himself, you've got to believe in yourself here. You can do this. So he's using that motivation, that positive self-talk. Even though he didn't feel it, he went down on the floor. He probably thought, I could have wrapped it up right there, but I didn't. When he went and had that chat, he said, no, believe in yourself, you've got this. Stay positive. Even though he didn't want to stay positive, because he was down, pick himself up. Good example. So, I want you to just think about, you don't have to share with me, I don't want to know, what can you say to pump yourself up, or what could you say to calm yourself down if you were feeling a bit too worked up? So I just want you to think about that for 30 seconds, and then I'll go on to the last one, and then we're wrapping up. So, a warm-up routine is the last one we're going to use. So a warm-up routine obviously helps you prepare physically for what you're about to do. I'm sure you and Matt talk about that all the time, being physically warmed up for what you're about to do. But a warm-up routine also helps us mentally prepare for our performance. Because what it does is it helps our brain focus on what we need to do. So if we're going out and hitting a few balls, if we're trying to bring the same mindset to that warm-up that we would in a match, we're warming up our brain as well. We're getting it focused on what we have to do. It helps us get that competitive mindset going. So it's always good to play a couple of points, not big long ones, just a couple of points just to get that competitiveness going. And it can help us reduce our stress, get out some of that nervous energy. And it can also affect our hormone levels because, you know, we get when we get nervous energy, we get adrenaline, and it helps us come into that helpful space. And it's also a good opportunity to visualize what you're about to do, to be like, yeah, okay, I'm going to hit like this, and we're going to play the point out, I'm going to come to the net, I'm going to do these things. It gives you the opportunity to mentally practice what you're about to go out and do, which means that you're more focused and ready to go. So create a warm-up routine and stick to it every single time. Whether you're playing a little club tournament or a little club match on a Friday night, or you're coming and playing actually a bigger tournament where you're playing against different people. So once you have your routine, stick to it every time. And that will help you get more and more consistent with how you play. There's a whole skill to that, and if you wanted to chat with me a little bit more about what it looks like, I'd be more than happy to do it. But with these 4 things, what we're doing is learning where our optimal level is, what it looks like for us, know where it is, and then use some strategies to help us get there as often as possible. We can use our music, we can use our breathing, we can use self-talk, and we create a warm-up routine. Any questions about any of that? The question is, where's the food after? Alright, thanks guys, that's me. I hope you got something out of that. I need the pins back, but I don't need pins.
Right, guys, just not about us, but you guys just have, if those of you that want a sausage, come grab a quick sausage. There's some gluten-free ones there. If someone is gluten-free
Ready to go?
You guys are always right. Probably best if you can email me through what your questions are, and then we can put a call on. Oh, that's great. Yeah. No worries. I'm definitely keen for a sausage. I don't know what anyone else is saying.
Yes, I'm super keen.
Good, how are you? Rugged up? Haven't seen you for a while.
Yeah.
Been going okay?
Yeah.
Yeah? Been playing tennis? You got an elbow thing. What's your elbow thing? I don't know. Like tendon or muscles?
Muscles.
Oh, it's not
They
good.
were videoing us that whole time.
Why? Oh, sugar.